You're in a meeting where everything is fine. Everyone says so. But you caught the half-beat pause before your manager said, "We're in a good place." You caught her eyes move to the door when the number came up. And the man who never stops talking hasn't said a word in 11 minutes. Nobody else in that room is carrying this. You're already building the shape of something that hasn't been announced yet. Or you're at dinner and someone laughs a quarter second late. That's all it takes. You keep talking, you keep smiling, and underneath the conversation, a small machine starts running. What did I say? When did it change? What does she know? Or it's a Tuesday and you're in your kitchen holding a mug you haven't drunk from, reading a message that says, "Okay, sounds good." Not "sounds good," just "Okay, sounds good." You've read it 9 times. You're not reading the words. You're reading the temperature. And then it resolves. The meeting was nothing. She laughed late because she'd already heard the joke. The message meant exactly what it said. And you're left in that flat, strange quiet of having been right about the detail and wrong about the whole thing, with the adrenaline of a threat that never showed up still sitting in your chest, looking for somewhere to go. Let's start with the thing almost nobody says out loud. You are not imagining what you see. You've been told your whole life that you overthink, that you're too sensitive, and every one of those people was wrong about the mechanism. The seeing is real. It's measurable. What happens after the seeing is where your life gets decided. By the end of this, you'll know what this ability actually is, the two opposite jobs it's doing, what it's costing the people closest to you, and how to take the wheel back. In 1997, 2 researchers at Stony Brook University, Elaine Aron and Arthur Aron, published a paper in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that gave this thing a name: sensory processing sensitivity. And their central point was surgical. It is, they wrote, a difference not in the sense organs per se, but in how sensory information is transmitted to or processed in the brain. Read that again. Your eyes are ordinary. Your ears are ordinary. The difference is downstream. You're running deeper processing on the same input everyone else got and throwing away much less of it. In 2010, a team including Jatsia Jagielowicz put people in a scanner and showed them pairs of photographs with changes hidden inside. Some obvious, some tiny. A bale of hay, a fence post. People high in this trait showed significantly greater activation in higher-order visual processing regions when detecting the minor changes. Not the big ones, the small ones. The stuff engineered to be missed. And here's the part that unsettles people. In 2018, Francesca Lionetti and Michael Plus, working with the Arons, ran the numbers on over 900 adults. 31% landed in the high sensitivity group. Nearly 1 in 3. The thing you've been treated like an outlier for is close to a third of the room, and most of them have been told to stop it too. So here's the contradiction. If noticing everything is such an advantage, why does it feel like a sentence? Why are the best perceivers in the room reliably the most exhausted people in it? Because it isn't one ability. It's 2 wearing the same face, and they have opposite jobs. One of them is a lens. The other is an alarm. The lens is perception in service of understanding. It's the half that finds the flaw on page 4 while everyone's still arguing about page 1. It's the half that hears a friend say, "I'm fine," knows with no evidence you could write down that they're not, and asks the second question, the one that actually opens the door. It catches the wrong word in the contract. The lens wants what's true. The alarm is perception in service of safety. Same equipment, same accuracy on the raw signal. But the alarm isn't asking what's true. It's asking what's coming. It scans a face for the withdrawal before it's a withdrawal. It reads footsteps on a staircase. It measures the tone of one word in a 9-word message, because the tone of one word once meant the whole evening was about to go bad. Same behavior, opposite functions. And you rotate between them a dozen times a day without ever catching the switch, because from the inside, they feel identical. They both feel like insight. Now, the more uncomfortable research. In 2002, Seth Pollack at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, working with Pawan Sinha at MIT, studied how children recognize emotion in faces. They degraded photographs of expressions into visual noise, then let them resolve slowly, static gradually becoming a face, while the children called out what they saw. Children who grew up in physically abusive homes identified anger correctly from significantly less visual information than other children. They saw it earlier, out of less. And they weren't just anxious guessers. For sadness, they needed more information than controls, not less. It was specific. Their systems had been tuned to one channel. Pollack was clear about what that meant. The ability, he wrote, may confer an adaptive benefit to children living in conditions where the occurrence of threat and the probability of harm are high. Sit with that word, adaptive. It worked. That same year, Pollack and Doris Kistler published a second study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, using faces morphed along a scale between two emotions. The abused children's perceptual boundary for anger had physically moved. They needed less anger in a face to call it angry. The paper's own summary runs 9 words. Abused children over-identified anger relative to fear and sadness. Nobody taught them that in a lesson. They ran it 10,000 times until it stopped being a skill and became a reflex. And this is where the lens and the alarm turn out to have the same parent. You don't build a system like this out of curiosity. You build it out of a lack of control. Picture the child. Somebody's mood in that house was the weather, and the weather decided everything. Whether the door slammed, whether you were adored tonight or invisible tonight. You couldn't vote on it. You couldn't leave. The one thing you could do, the only lever a small person actually has, was get better at prediction. So you learned the sound of the car in the driveway and what a slightly different door close meant. You learned the 4 distinct kinds of silence. You learned to read a face from across a room in under a second and adjust your entire personality before anyone spoke to you. That's not a disorder. That's engineering. A child with no power over their environment built the only instrument available. And it worked. It got you here. And that same instrument, pointed at a book or a problem instead of a threat, is what people now call your intuition. Both halves were brilliant. Both were, at the time, completely necessary. Here's the problem nobody mentions. Nobody ever comes and rings the all clear. There's no ceremony where somebody sits your nervous system down and explains that the house is behind you. The person is gone, and you can walk out of any room now. The system was never told, so it's still running at full power on the original settings. Except now the targets are trivial. A message that says, "Okay, sounds good." A 3-hour gap in a reply. A world-class threat detector built for survival, aimed at an inbox. You can't just decide to switch it off. 3 reasons why. The first is the illusion. Noticing feels like knowing. When you catch a real signal, and you usually do, your mind hands you a conclusion in the same motion, and both arrive feeling equally like fact. But detection and interpretation are 2 separate jobs, and your system only ever got expert at one. You're a superb instrument with a story generator bolted to the side, and it feels like paying in advance so nothing can blindside you. It doesn't work that way. Your body cannot tell the difference between a threat you observed and one you constructed. You pay the full price for both. The second is the reward. Being right is a drug. Every time the alarm calls something correctly, and it will because it's built on real data, you get a hit of vindication that pays for the 90 times it was wrong. Underneath that is something older. Being the one who sees is an identity. It was your job as a child. It made you useful, and useful made you safe. The third is that reality can't compete. The alarm is instant, free, unlimited, and completely private. It answers in half a second. Asking the actual person, "Hey, did I get something wrong earlier?" is slow, exposed, and might go badly. Suspicion is instant. Confirmation makes you wait and makes you vulnerable while you wait. Of course you take the fast one. Now the cost. 2 layers, and the second one is the one people never see. The first is arithmetic. Attention is finite. You're running deeper analysis on every room, every face, every message, and the scanner draws power whether or not there's anything there. So you arrive at your actual life already spent, exhausted at 4 in the afternoon by events that never happened. That's the layer you already know about. Here's the other one. It lands on other people. Because you don't just observe, you conclude. You walk out of a 2-second glance carrying a verdict about someone you love, that they're pulling away, that they've decided something about you, and then you treat them like it's already proven. You go slightly cooler. You stop reaching out first. And you collect the next 4 ambiguous things as evidence in a case they were never told they were standing trial in. They can feel it. They can't name it, and they can't argue with it. They just notice something changed, and you say nothing's wrong. You're right about the signal and wrong about the story. And the people you love serve the sentence for the difference. There's a quieter cost on the other half. You stop saying what you see. Enough people call you dramatic or intense or too much, and the lens goes underground. And the most valuable thing you own goes unspoken in every room you walk into. This is not a defect. It's the raw material for nearly everything you like about yourself. The friend who knows you're not okay before you do, that's this. The person who finds the mistake nobody else found. The one who reads the room and makes the thing that makes people ask, "How did you know?" You can't have the empathy without the sensitivity, or the pattern recognition without the scanning. It's one trait, and you have an unusual amount of it. What you've got is a very powerful engine, installed early for good reasons, by someone who needed it badly. It just never came with an off switch. Nobody built you one. So we build a steering wheel instead. 4 moves. None of them is stop noticing. That would be fixing a telescope by breaking the lens. The first is to name which half is running. Jaw tight, replaying the sentence. Ask one question. Is this the lens or the alarm? You'll know in a second, and the naming alone takes a startling amount of the charge out of it, because the alarm only works while it's disguised as insight. The second is to separate what you saw from what you decided. Say the observation out loud, alone, with nothing attached. Her voice changed when I mentioned the deadline. Full stop. That's the data. Everything after it, she's angry, she's done with me, is a story, and you wrote it. Give it one pass. Take the single useful thing. Then close it. The 12th loop contains no new information. It's the same 3 seconds getting louder. The third is to verify out loud instead of privately, and it's worth more than the other 3 combined. Take the observation to the actual person and deliver it as a question, not a verdict. You went quiet earlier. Did I miss something? 9 times out of 10, the answer is their day, their back, their mother. And every time you check, you teach the system its real false positive rate. It has never once been told. The fourth is that you can't argue your way out of a body that's already braced. So don't try. Outrank it with input. Cold water on your wrists, feet flat on the floor. Name 5 things in the room out loud. The alarm runs on the future. Your senses only work in the present. You can only be in one of them at a time. Let's finish with the part that's true. What you have is rare, and it's real, and it isn't the same thing as anxiety, even though the two have been living next door for years. Roughly a third of people carry some version of this, and almost none have been told it's an ability, not a fault. And before you try to fix any of it, give credit where it's owed. Some kid built this. With no help, no instructions, and no other options, they designed something precise enough to read a room from the doorway and predict a storm from a single syllable. It worked. That's the only reason you're here. Thank them. But you're not in that house anymore. The footsteps aren't coming. The weather doesn't decide your life now. You do. And the people in your life today are not the people the alarm was built for. They're the ones who could actually hold you if you'd put the verdict down long enough to ask them a question. So do one thing this week. The next time you feel that sentence forming, say the observation out loud and ask instead of concluding. You'll always see what others don't. Now, you get to decide what it means.